Today on Detroit Muscle, we start the process of taking our AMC Javelin back in time with an old school theme.
But first, we have to see what makes this classic car tick.
Hey folks, welcome to Detroit Muscle. Today's an exciting day for us because we're introducing a brand new project car, and this time it's going to be a pony car. Now when you're talking about pony cars, there's been much debate over whether they're muscle cars or not, but if they've got a V8 under the hood, well, that's good enough for us. We're talking Camaros, Mustangs, Cougars, Firebirds and Trans Ams, Cooters and Challengers, and let's not forget the AMC Javelin.
Now, love them or hate them, you cannot deny that this thing is covered up with style. And when we got this thing in, well, we had some pretty big dreams for it.
And we found what we thought was the perfect candidate down in Alabama, so we headed down there with the truck and the trailer to take a look at it. We did like you normally do when you're checking out a used car. We fired it up, checked out the interior. Really like this cockpit too. That headliner is wild. You could replace that, I guess, if you wanted to, but I don't want to. It's cool. And made sure it drove. So we decided we'd pay the man, loaded it on the trailer, and it was ours.
And with the heritage that these cars have, well, that inspired our original plan. Marc Donahue and Roger Penske put AMC in the winner's circle with numerous wins and trophies to show off.
Cars are spectacular on the racetrack because they don't go around like they're on a rail. They slide and drift, pick wheels up in the corner. They're really fun to watch.
With what they did in those races, cemented AMC's place in the history books.
To follow that success, AMC developed performance versions of the Javelin to offer to the public, including the Marc Donahue Edition and the Javelin AMX. These hypo rides were offered for several years, but AMC was a little late to the game. By this time, the gas crisis and EPA standards had killed performance, and the muscle car era was over. Now, we absolutely love early 70s Trans Am cars, and you can't deny those red, white, and blue AMXs.
Now, to build a car like that, you're going to need several components. Big gnarly power up under the hood, some trick suspension, huge brakes, and some wheels and tires to handle all that.
Exactly, and let's just say this isn't a Camaro or a Mustang. There's just not as many parts available, so it's gonna be a lot more work, and we definitely did not want to shortchange a build like that.
And you have to think about the time as well. To build something of that nature, well, it'd take months, if not years, to complete. And after having this thing sitting around here in the building for a bit, well, we realized we were missing an excellent opportunity.
Let's just call it old school cool.
Playing off AMC's undeniable 70s style, this ride is begging to be transformed into a muscle machine with fats in the back, skinnies up front, and a raked out stance to show off its backside.
Its outside appearance is gonna stay red, but with an old school scheme.
I sure can't wait to get started on this thing because I'm digging what we're fixing to do.
Absolutely, yeah, this is something we both love, and this is the perfect car for it. But before we dig into it, get started, I want to drive it because I only drove it from where it was parked at the guy's house to onto the trailer, and just that little bit, like the seat's comfortable, steering feels nice, I like the cockpit, and I've never really driven one of these, so.
I'll get the door for you, buddy.
Appreciate it. It's gonna be awesome.
Don't forget to pull the choke.
Oh yeah. Oh, come on, baby. I bet Tommy drained the gas. Jokester. Ah, there we go.
Coming up, we take our Humpster on the road and then put it on the dyno
to see what upgrades it needs to become a muscle machine. Oh, I'm taking this old Javelin out for a spin, and so far, I like it. It drives like a sedan of the same era would. Just like steering's like real slow, big steering wheel. Doesn't have the feel of a performance car. And I know this isn't a performance trim level, this isn't an AMX, but it feels more like a luxury coupe, minus the leather. More like a T-Bird would have been, or something like that. The ergonomics of this thing is great, though. I love the way that the cockpit feels, and that's what I liked about it right off the bat when I pulled it into the trailer. Is, you know, just the way it feels to sit in here. I guess it feels more like a European, maybe more like a European Grand Touring car would feel. So, you know, it's very European. Now that I'm in here, it's kind of making sense. Kind of like a Maserati or something like that, or a Aston Martin. Now I know this is different ball game there, but it just kind of has, like, that's what they were going for when they designed this car. And you can really see the hump in the fender. It's very pronounced from the driver's seat, and it really makes you feel like you're driving something special. And the steering, it really feels like I'm driving a big car. Kind of floats down the road, steering's nice and soft, you know, the seat's super comfortable, but yet I'm sitting low, and like I mentioned, that fender, you know, it just feels like a sports car that's just missing the pep, you know, which I like that, because we can add the pep. Brakes feel great. Again, nothing performance related, but that was a pretty tight turn there, and I only gave it about a quarter of a turn of input. So maybe the steering isn't as loose as I thought, but definitely numb feeling. Not getting much feedback from the road through the suspension. See how this power application is. Wow. It didn't kick down like I thought it would just then. So we're not sure which engine this is. This car was available with just about every engine option they had in the day, which ranges from a 304 all the way up to a 401. It's probably not a 401, being that it is this Pierre Cardin edition, but could be anywhere in between though. All right, it kicked down there. Oh yeah, it just floats. It's pinging a little bit too. Yeah, it definitely needs more power. There's no question about that, but I'm sure back in 1973 when this car was new, whoever bought it, drove this thing off the lot, was just really happy, and probably a cool dude driving it off the lot with a polyester shirt, probably some corduroy pants and some loafers. He was the king of the road, I guarantee you that. But overall, I mean, if just on its own, it's a nice riding and driving car. I could take this car on a long road trip, no problem. Again, really the only thing I would change is I'd add some more power, and if I was gonna do a lot of spirited driving with it, you know, change the steering a bit, make it a little more sporty. But this is just a nice cruiser, you know. If you're into oddball, you know, low production numbers, front engine, rear wheel drive, V8, American made, two-door cars, this is a nice car, and they're not really that expensive. So you get a lot of bang for your buck with this car, and I'm sure it was the same way when it was new. If you were daring enough to buy one instead of a Challenger or a Mustang or a Camaro. It feels like a really, really well-built car. This is the kind of car my wife wouldn't complain about riding in, you know. It's not loud, doesn't smell bad, it's reliable, rides nice, lots of room for a two-door. It's an awesome car. Well, all I need to do now is get it back to the shop and get it on the dyno. I want to see how much power this thing makes and figure out what we need to do about that and make some improvements.
Numbers don't lie, and how impressive will ours be? We strap our Javelin to the dyno.
Well, old Marc finally got back after his joyride of stretching the legs on this old AMC. Now we have it strapped to the dyno, and we're pretty much ready to see what kind of numbers this thing's gonna make. You fellas ready?
Absolutely. Now,
Yeah.
before you get started, this car, where's it been? Because when I was out doing burnouts in the parking lot, and we said we were going to build an engine, we built an engine for this thing. So
Well, you still gonna build an engine. It's just a different one.
a
You know,
different
things
one,
change.
okay?
Yeah.
Tell me a story.
We actually have, we figured out a better plan for the entire build, and that means a different engine.
Okay, well, I'm all for it. You know how we are. We'll build anything, but and this will be a cool one. But I'm very curious to see what this makes, because when we're out doing J-turns and reverse slams and burnouts, it seemed pretty spicy, but the roller tells a story, so.
All right, let's find out.
All right, you don't have a tack in there, do you?
No tack.
Okay, see if you can see that. Right now, we got good signal.
Tilt it down just a little bit.
What are you gonna run it up to?
Let's go to 5 on the first one.
Woo!
See what happens.
I like this. I like the way you think.
Are we taking predictions on how much it's gonna make?
I definitely won't have a 2 in the number.
Right,
It
Tommy?
might.
Right.
It'll be a 1, 2.
Yeah, it won't start.
It won't be a 2 in the first
It will
number.
not start with 2.
All right.
It should make.
I should have took that bet. I could have got lunch at least.
If it makes 160, I'm gonna be like,
There you
that's
go.
gonna be crazy.
150, I hope.
Yeah. I was gonna say 180, but I think that's probably kind of hopeful.
John, come on, let's go. This dyno is like. I think he was rolling into the. Oh, there you go. Well, let's see here.
Well, no.
$2,200.
Well, it's got a big wave in it right now. We can't actually get a number on that.
It kicked down, so I got out of it.
It kicked down. That's the craziest looking dyno graph ever. I'm just gonna go ahead and get rid of that.
Why don't you delete that? And let's do it again.
It's his first day.
I'll see if I can prevent it from kicking down this time.
as crazy as that line looked just then, that kind of matches the AMC. Everything about it's kind of odd.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to get it to not kick down this time.
There for a minute, I thought I was gonna need a protective vest on.
Well, I thought I was gonna need a sundial to time it with.
I don't know, that sounded like 100 horse.
That was a long pull.
That was long.
Whoa, baby, we were all way off. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
132 horse.
Oh, man. What did it make it peak?
It's not bad. Peak was somewhere at 3,800.
Okay.
I mean, try to get your head to roll into it because it's kicking down. Try another one.
All right.
It did make 200 pound-feet of torque.
All right. Yeah, I felt that.
Oh, man.
All right, here we go.
I love it.
Make sure you push it all the way down this time.
I had it. I had my foot in the carburetor.
Oh, man, we stepped her up.
Okay.
133.
Man, we keep doing this 100 times.
Okay.
We probably won't get much better.
201 pound-feet.
I guess there's no point in me pulling it up that high, though, right?
I mean,
Unless you want to replace the engine.
now,
Wait.
initially, it's
I
not.
know a guy.
It's not falling off. I mean, it's not cratering. It just doesn't have any power.
Yeah.
It runs fine.
What causes that? I mean, I know what causes that, but
I mean, this is a 73.
yeah.
73, smog engine. I mean,
And it's kind of small cubic inch too.
it's got everything going against it. It's 304 cubic inches or whatever, very small cubic inch. It's a smog era engine, so the compression's very, very low. It has a whole bunch of stuff that's tuned specifically for emissions, not for outright power. So just the fact that it's making that is pretty good. I know it seems kind of lame, but that's definitely easy to improve.
What could you do with that engine?
Well, that is just because it's a smaller engine doesn't mean it's not going to make power. The kind of like a 302 Ford, right? You can get cylinder heads for it. You can get cams for it. You can definitely spiff it. The big thing that makes these run better is compression. This thing, I would be surprised if it was over 8.5 to 1. Wow. So you get it up to around 10 to 1. Put a little cam in it, you can significantly increase power. I wouldn't venture a guess, but we could significantly improve it.
But it'd have a 2 in it though, right?
It would definitely have a 2 in it at the start.
Or a 3?
Hopefully. I don't know. It's hard to predict on this one, but It's still got all its guts. There's nothing puking out on the ground, and it didn't blow a tire.
It must have one of them heavy-duty oil pans too, because nothing come out.
Yeah, see, the worst thing to have is a catastrophic oil pan failure.
So that sounded like an offer.
Absolutely, no. Get that thing out. I'd like to, for one, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna put that on the engine dyno.
Oh, cool.
Just to see what it makes, you know, from a driveline loss standpoint. And we can definitely make some improvements.
All right, well, let's get it unstrapped and we'll take it down there and get it out.
It's nothing like coming to see your buddy and then making you do more work on the same day, man.
That ain't bad.
What does AMC stand for? We tear into our Javelin, soon find out. You know, putting this thing on the dyno, I really wasn't all that impressed, man. That 130-ish horsepower, we got a lot of room to improve.
Man, I gotta tell you, you didn't drive this thing out on the street and you had the opportunity to. And that was the sweetest 130 horsepower I've ever driven.
Yeah, I'm not as sweet as I hope, man.
But it'd be cool if it was like 330 or 430.
So how did it drive? Did it drive actually pretty nice?
It drove nice, yeah. Like it drove like a big sedan. I like the car actually. I like it a lot more than I expected to. So I'm anxious to see what it's gonna be like once we get it all finished.
So what do you think it's gonna drive like once we get, you know, like 300, 400 horse under this thing?
I think it'll probably be just as nice of a driver, but more fun. Like that's really all it lacked was power.
Because, you know, with the style that we're gonna throw on this thing, I want it to look the part and I also want it to act the part, so.
All right, let's get this thing out of here. Take the hood off.
Yeah, that'd probably be wise to do the first thing. You know, I've always been curious about these braces on the front end of these cars. I've worked on big body Cadillacs, Camaros, now AMCs. I wonder if you just took these things and threw them away, if you would even notice any difference. Like, shoo! Flip side is, man, sure I'm glad we put them braces on the front end of this car. Shoo! It sure does drive a lot better.
You want me to take this other one out, or we got room?
Oh, I'm just taking
Oh, you're
it
good
out.
for the battery? Oh, I thought you were doing it for something else.
I thought you was wanting to hold the wrench. Oh, I didn't throw my back out.
No, I got something else to keep me looking busy over here.
A little tip for you whenever you're removing the heater hoses that connect to your heater core is actually just take the clamps off and then take a razor blade and slice the hose. If you just go to wrestling on that hose, well, oftentimes what happens is you'll crack or destroy the heater core. This way, you will have to replace the heater hoses, but you probably need to do that anyhow, but you will save the heater core.
So graceful.
Got him. No, seriously, Mark, working on this thing, what do you think AMC really, stands for?
American Motors Corporation.
No, not the true name.
Oh. All manufacturers combined.
What gives you that idea?
Well, you got a Chevy power steering pump. You got a Motorcraft carburetor. I mean, it looks like it should be a Mopar distributor, but it's got a GM style cap on it.
I know I was starting to think this was the first time I'd worked on an AMC, but with that statement, I've worked on a bunch of them.
I'm anxious to see what's underneath.
Hey, Mark, was the speedometer working?
No, not at all. Why?
I guess you could say it needs a rebuild kit.
Is it broken?
Just on one end.
Hey, Tommy.
Yes,
I
sir.
can tell this thing's got custom exhaust on it. You know how I can tell?
How's that, bud?
They installed the hangers with lag bolts. Like, screwed it right into the floor.
Better no expense. Two down. I'll let you do the honors on that side.
Hey, get the cherry picker.
Think as I do it?
I think that'll do the job.
Let me get this Ford product out of the way.
Look at it. It's even a Ford gasket.
That's what was restricting this car from making all that power.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
You wouldn't think that little motor'd be that heavy.
Nah, I think it was just
Stuck.
in there. Keep coming. Well, I'd say we got a lot done today. Introduced the car, showed us picking it up. I took it out for a ride.
Joyride. You didn't even let me go with you.
You had the opportunity. And dyno.
Yeah, that pop quiz down there at the dyno, you know, we didn't really pass with flying colors, but
No, but you know, if you want to start low, that way you got a big gap, yeah.
I guess there's some truth to that.
And we got the engine and trans out, so we can get that down there.
Yeah,
So
that wasn't hard, but I bet that cleaning this junk up out of the bottom side here is gonna be a mess.
I think you're the man for the job.
Yeah, I know somebody that can handle it. Name's Marc. Chris. Today on Detroit Muscle, our 1973 AMC Javelin goes from boring to bodacious, splashing on layers and layers of color to create one retro-style paint job that lifts some spirits. Hey guys, welcome to Detroit Muscle. We're in the middle of the reflection rejuvenation on our AMC Javelin. After all the painstaking bodywork was over, it was ready for a quick rub down and a bit of some quality time with an air hose to get it cleaned up. Then we pushed it into the booth, taped her up, and it was finally ready for a coat of sealer. For painting products, we went to Summit Racing for a full setup, and we also brought ourselves in a trigger man, Ted Swan, master painter extraordinaire. Hey, man, you ready for this big day?
I'm ready for this, and today on our Javelin project, we're going to use the entire Summit Racing line. Everything from the cleaners and degreasers up to and including the clear coat. Unlike some of the projects that we've done in the past, Tom and I have quite a few more products laid out color selection-wise. Do you want to tell them a little about that?
Sure. Now, Summit offers 30 colors that are available in base clear and single stage, but they've upped their game. Now available is some pearls, some candies, and even an intermixing clear. This allows you to be plenty creative, and that's exactly what we did with that test panel.
And that was so much more than a test panel.
Doing something like this is always a really good idea because it gives you an opportunity to transfer what's in your head to a canvas. And just doing that sometimes can be a bit complicated.
And it's a lot more complicated than what we've done in the past. We have Cherry Bomb Blast, which is slightly translucent, on top of 3 other colors here. We also taped this off so that we could demonstrate to ourselves, do we actually like each individual color? Sometimes you'll do this, think of it as like a feasibility thing, not just a test panel, where this really worked, but I didn't like this part of it at all. And that prevents you from getting committed on the real job. We can change our minds at this point.
Well, with that said, we've got our roadmap down and we're trying to get to a destination. You ready to start pulling the trigger?
Ready to start pulling the trigger? We know where we're going. Let's go.
To give you the inside scoop on Ted, he's a master automotive refinishing specialist for Summit, with his forte in spraying techniques and finding solutions for painting complications. This fella has sprayed well over 2,000 vehicles in his time. He's also worked in the industry for over 37 years and got his start painting custom bikes with his old man. He sure does make painting look easy. Well, we're finally ready to start spraying our graphics. Our red is on, it's plenty dry enough to start taping. Now with our artwork, we're not gonna get all kind of elaborate with it. We're gonna run a stripe down the middle, it's gonna tee off, and then come down the side. Now over these big bulbous fender flares, it is gonna get a tiny bit fatter, but that's gonna add a bit of style to it. And to do it, we just need the tape, some razor blades, and a paint paddle to use for a measuring tool. It's time to get started. When it comes for masking tape, there's pretty much two different types. You have the vinyl, and then you have paper tape. I prefer to use a fine line vinyl for laying out your hard lines, and then the paper for the fill-in. Right there. A paint paddle is handy to use as a measuring tool, and it's cheap insurance. If you're using a tape measure and accidentally bump the retract button, you can cause yourself some heartache. This gentle stick can work just the same. With my graphics, I prefer letting the car tell me what it wants, working with the factory body lines and accentuating its curves and its features. Whenever you start laying your stripes out, a lot of times you'll have to lap over the tape. And here's a little trick for you using the razor blade. Using the dull side of the razor blade, you can lay it right on that edge, mash that tape nice and tight against the other piece. If you don't do this, the paint will actually blow up under it, and you'll see it whenever you unmask it. The other thing is use your blade to lay right on your edge and pull your tape at kind of a 45, cuts it nice and clean. Then if you have to use a razor blade to cut it, you gotta be real easy, just cut through the tape and knife the paint. With our design dialed in, stretching across the hood and all the way to the back bumper, we're ready to mask off our graphics. Then the gold can be laid down. Ted's applying 3 coats, and I can't wait to see this thing transform with our final candy color. If you've ever had the craving to create something with sweet candy, we'll give you the recipe for this bad apple. Next on Detroit Monthly.
Before going in the booth and spraying, it's very important to have your spray gun set at the correct pressure. This can be found on your product data sheets, and it varies from product to product. For today's demonstration, I'm gonna put some water in here, put some air to my spray gun, and you can see a pattern coming out. Now that's at full wide open. What I'm going to ask you folks to pay attention to, I'm now going to narrow the pattern down. That's typically the top knob, and you're going to see my pressure go up. Now the reason that's doing that is because there's no air going to the horns once the pattern's narrowed down. They make these so that you can spray a variety of objects from something the size of a car to something small, like a tubular structure, and not have this like 11-inch wide pattern. When it's narrowed down, if you were spraying something small, you turn the pressure down till it's back to normal, and you also turn the fluid in. What this is doing is not letting as much material come out, so that you could do something like shading or creating a shadow or just a small touch-up. Either way that you adjust, it's always good to have the spray gun adjusted before you go in there and work on your pride and joy. So be sure to adjust the gun, put it on some masking paper and spray a pattern out, and that's how you do that.
Man, that's a really nice gold.
I do like it.
Now, Ted's got our stripe color all laid out, and we're pretty much ready to start unmasking so that he can spray on that sweet candy.
Now, if you see what I did here, I'm taking the masking paper off. The fine line's going to stay on there because that is the outline of the design.
What he's referring to is on our graphics layout, we're using the fine line to create a viper red outline stripe, so that tape needs to stay for now.
You may notice while I'm untaping that I have the jams masked off. What that's doing is preventing the overspray that goes in here on these edges from exiting out of the jam and contaminating the rest of the panel. I hope this tip helps, because this is a very good practice to do whenever custom painting going from panel to panel.
Yeah, I know that red and that gold is very strong to look at. You may be second guessing our decision-making skills, but trust me, this thing's gonna be killer when we're done. Well, we got it all untaped, and I have to say, my mouth is watering just thinking about that candy. You ready to get some mixed up?
You can't wait to get a taste of that, can you?
It's gonna be sweet. The appearance of our car currently versus this hood may be a bit confusing to a few of you guys. And you may be wondering how to go from that in the booth to this. The magic happens in the mid coat, or the candy coat. We actually sprayed two different colors here on these stripes, silver and gold. We did this because we weren't exactly sure of what our colors would turn out like under that cherry bomb metallic. On the center graphics is where we painted the gold rush. If the light hits the color just right, it's a breathtaking ruby red. The narrower stripes on each side is where we sprayed the bright silver, and it reacted quite a bit different. It has a much brighter appearance, and the flop of the color is very impressive. Turns out Ted and I both prefer the gold more than the silver, and that's why we sprayed it onto the AMC. Now this next step is really going to transform our Javelin into a true stunning piece of Detroit muscle. For the effect we're going to lay down 3 coats. Spraying candy can be a difficult task. Running the length of the car and some cross coats helps to ensure equal coverage when applying translucent color. After Ted's handiwork, we can reveal our final colors. There's a lot more to unmasking this car than just pulling off this tape. You spend all this time and effort doing artwork, if you will, and pulling this off incorrectly, well, can cost you all that labor. You don't want to pull the tape off perpendicular to the panel because you're risking a chance of the material peeling off of the surface. It's always a good idea to more or less pull the tape back upon itself. That drastically reduces the chances of delamination. With that satisfying process out of the way, it's time to pour on the clear. This first coat of clear confirms our paint choices were a success. Just look at that color. Hell yeah. I don't know about you, but I'm digging what we've created. Brother, I believe we knocked it out of the park.
You know, I really think we did. I mean, it's a perfect combination of the car and the color scheme with the right graphics on it because they fit the shape of this car. And this thing certainly is an hourglass of a car with a couple creases in it.
Now, I know AMCs have some shape to them, but that complements this color.
It does.
You know, with that said, this type of paint scheme shouldn't be on every car.
It shouldn't be. I mean, if we had a car like that Hemi car we knew about, you'd want to leave that alone, maybe do a restoration. But this was a nice, clean car and a great starter point.
Well, you worked pretty hard. Let's go grab you a beer or two.
Let's go get some. Yeah, that'd be a great idea.
What color would you call that?
I don't know yet.
What about Bad Apple?
I like it.
Up next, how to put that shine back into your old trim with a little hand jiving.
Well, we got our AMC out of the booth, unmasked, and we can finally step back and admire all of our fancy handiwork. What do you think about this thing?
Man, I like this thing. With all this fancy paint work done, we're ready to start reassembly. Now, this is the part that I really like, because with each piece, that gets us one step closer to completing this retro masterpiece.
Oftentimes following new paint is all new components going on it. You know, with that shiny new surface, you'd want a grille, tail lights, trim, and bumpers to match. And if this was a Chevelle, Mustang, or Charger or something, well, right now it'd be Christmas time. We'd be ripping boxes open, packaging going everywhere, all excited about our new pieces going on our shiny car. But where we're at, with that odd duck AMC, there's not a whole lot of aftermarket support. So that's going to require us to do some refurbishing.
Now, everyone loves chrome, but not all shiny things are created equal. If you're looking to brighten up your exterior trim and the parts are stainless, well, all you're going to need are a couple of tools and some patience. The first thing you want to do is inspect the part. You're looking for dents, dings, and scratches. With the lock cylinders, they always have scars from using keys. By the looks of things, someone may have sanded across it at some point or another, but we can fix that. Another common issue is paint on the surface. Now, to remove this, there's a right way and a wrong way. You don't want to scrape this off with your trusty old-timer, because you're risking costing yourself more work. Just let it soak in some paint thinner for a few minutes. And it normally wipes right off. Now that it's all cleaned up, it's time to repair these blemishes. It's going to take some sanding. Depending on how deep the scratches are, determines the grit of paper you should start with. We have some gnarly grooves, so we are starting with 400. Then we will move finer as we smooth things out. And the finer you finish it with paper, the less time you spend on the polisher. It's time to add back the shine, and that's going to require a high-speed polisher. With a little dab of compound on the wheel and some patience that we mentioned earlier, this thing will look like new again. It's a good idea to wear gloves for safety, and just keep the part on the wheel with a small amount of pressure. It takes a few wipe downs to check your work, but with some quality time, you will have perfection. Man, that has to be the best looking lock cylinder I've worked on today.
Let me see that thing. Dude.
It looks pretty good, don't it?
That ain't too bad, and you're so good at it, I got you some homework.
Really?
Hey.
Man, I should have never said anything about polishing stainless.
Coming up, chrome slabber bars, mag wheels, and air shocks. Trust me, you want to see this.
Hey guys, welcome back. We're continuing down the path of our 70s themed Javelin. We've given this thing a retro paint job to help complement this aggressive body style. And we've been working on brightening up our trim to help complement this fresh paint. Now, parts for these old AMCs are extremely hard to find, so restoring what we had was our best choice. Now, I've had about all the trim work I can stand, so we're going to go back here and start working on this rear suspension. Now, first thing we're going to do is change out these old air shocks. What's unique about these things is the fact that they, one, function like a normal shock, but two, they're adjustable with air pressure. These are fed by two air lines that are connected to a common Schrader valve. These can be used to raise and lower the car and can be aired up to roughly 100 psi. Now, these are essential to building a proper 70s themed street machine, but they're not without their fair share of problems, like this one here. Road debris and good old-fashioned dry rot from age are the leading causes in the failure of an air shock. What happens is, as the car goes up and down going down the highway, it'll eventually develop a crack from the dry rot and turn into a hole like you see here. Then it won't hold any air. The good news is that replacing these things is about as easy as it gets. It's what I like to call a six-pack job. It takes the first three to come up with the idea and the second three to get them on the car. Just a couple of nuts and bolts, and she's free.
For replacement, Summit took care of us with these Monroe Max Air shocks. These will definitely give our AMC's backside an altitude change. This kit includes new airlines, and it's wise to swap out these fatigue 2s from yesteryear. Let's drop this thing down, see how our upgrade went. That will get the job done. Now, if you're a fan of 70s era muscle, you've probably seen a set of these. Traction bars, slapper bars, torque bars, whatever you want to call them. And these things serve a bigger purpose other than just looking plain right cool. What they're actually designed to do is limit axle wrap. When you stomp on the gas pedal, the engine applies torque through the rear end, causing the differential to rotate in the opposite direction of the wheels. This causes the leaf spring to flex upward in the front and downward in the rear. If this action is too excessive, it can cause wheel hop and the loss of traction. By installing traction bars, these limit the amount of flex caused by the rear during heavy acceleration. To install a set of Lakewood traction bars, it doesn't get easier than this. You've got a couple of U-bolts, you just cinch them down, and you're pretty much ready for a night on the town. When tightening those U-bolts, you want to make sure that you don't tighten one side too much because you'll actually pull it off to one side, and that isn't what you're looking for. As the old saying goes, out with the old and in with the new. These Krager SS's wrapped with some sticky Mickey Thompsons will surely give us plenty of attention and a period correct look. We wanted this AMC to turn some heads, so it had to go under a heck of a transformation. That mainly happened inside the booth. With a few stripes, some candy paint, and a few coats of red, we believe we hit the nail on the head. The next time you see this bad apple, it will be time to add some serious motivation. Today on Detroit Muscle, we pump a few more ponies under the hood of our retro Javelin, while keeping it true to the AMC fans.
Speaking of pumping, we install an easy EFI conversion kit that will make you wonder why you would do it any other way.
Hey guys, welcome to Detroit Muscle. Today we're going to be dropping in the power plant to our AMC. Here on the exterior, we've kind of went down the retro path, and up under the hood, well, we've kind of taken a left turn in the direction of a bit more modern.
What we have here is our newly improved baby V8, and I bet Tom's statement had you AMC guys a bit worried, thinking this old Javelin is going to get molested. So calm down, it's still traditional AMC.
We pulled this old greasy thing out, all right, and sent it down to the guys in engine power. We thought it was bad on the outside.
Look at this, nasty.
But the inside was even worse.
Look at that. We've been getting some doozies.
Pat and Frankie stayed after it and then started working their magic. This AMC mill got the works with plenty of machine work and some goodies. They punched it out, installed a bigger bump stick, some aluminum heads, and EFI. Then it was time to put their hard work to the test and strap it to the dyno. This little thing started out from the factory at 150 horse. With their mods, they have more than doubled its power output, making 337. Now with this install of our engine, it's pretty much self-explanatory and straightforward because that's the exact engine that we removed from our AMC. It's a really good idea to make sure that you save all your old components because you never know what you'll end up reusing, whether it be a piece of hardware, shim, washer, or even a bracket. Now with that, we went ahead and saved our old motor mounts, but with the plan of replacing them with some that we got from Rock Auto. And the reason for that is because these things can kind of age out. Yeah, whenever we pulled the engine out, it was all happy and wasn't broken or nothing like that. But if you look closer at these things, well, you can see the damage that they have. If you'll notice that the plate is starting to break away from the cushion or delaminate. So to reuse something like this, well, you're just postponing a problem. To swap these engine mounts out right now, it only takes a couple of minutes. Where to put them in the car and then have to come back and change them later down the road, it's going to cost you a couple of hours. Some people prefer using solid mounts, especially in performance applications. But in our situation, a standard replacement from Rock Auto is the way to go. It bolts right into place and has the added benefits of a rubber mount, which reduces vibrations that's transferred from the engine. You ready to get that on?
I'm ready to put it on. You got the bolt?
Let me get you started.
On our AMC, the flex plate is pretty simple. It has an irregular bolt pattern, which is handy, meaning that it can only really go on one way. Now that our flex plate is in place and our bolts are started, it's time to torque them to spec. Now it's important to remember that each manufacturer has a different specification, and this depends on several factors, like bolt diameter, thread pitch, or material of components. So it's always important to do your homework and have the right information for whatever you're working on. If you were to torque these at a setting that was too low, it could possibly cause detrimental problems like vibrations, knocking, or even the flywheel to crack or even possibly shatter. Well, I got my part. You ready?
Just about. I've been busy. You know that.
Oh yeah, I can see.
Can you handle that pump handle?
All right.
Gearstar took care of us on this one. Our little A904 is built to the hills for trouble-free service. They've modified the drums, increased the capacity of clutch packs, and added a custom billet converter. Every trans they produce is dyno tested, and with 20 years of experience, gives durability for thousands of miles. You want to go up if you can. Installing an engine like this, it's always good to have a couple people working on it. You come down with the jack a little. And it takes a little bit of some finesse. Yep, let's go back toward the car. A little more. Slow down, slow down. It's also a good idea to not get in a hurry. Once you wiggle and jiggle it just right, it just falls into place. That's hurt.
In there like flint.
Shoot, I can't wait to get this red rocket out on the road.
Up next, converting that old school setup for a modern EFI system, the easy way. Next on Detroit Muscle.
Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. Well, we're well on our way reinstalling some of the hard parts back into our AMC so that we can get this thing to finally breathe some fire. And by the looks of things over here, you may be field dressing a radiator.
No, I'm just pulling these old fittings out because we're probably going to have to reuse them. But what we're not going to be reusing is this old radiator. The reason we're not using this radiator is due to the broken solder joint between the neck and the tank right here. And this is a pretty common thing on an old radiator. And another common problem is this green corrosion right here, which is a result of a leaky core.
So it doesn't really make sense to redo that one, does it?
No, not at all.
Well, I'm going to go grab a few extra parts and I'll let you get after it.
All right. Now, our new radiator comes to us from Frostbite. It's a direct-to-fit application, which is great because it has fully TIG-welded brackets that also have the factory bolt pattern pre-drilled into them. That keeps you from having to make anything crazy or do any kind of modifications to get it to fit in the car. Second thing I like about it is the fact it has an integrated transcooler, and all we have to do is screw in our original fittings, and then our factory transmission lines will hook to them. When making more power, oftentimes you need more cooling. Aluminum radiators have more than one benefit. Aluminum dissipates heat more efficiently. Plus, they are lighter than the old style, made of copper and brass. And when all polished up, they look pretty snazzy.
We're running electronic fuel injection on that hopped up AMC power plant that Engine Power built for us. And for it to run and operate properly, well, it requires a much greater fuel pressure. Normally what you have to do is modify your fuel tank and mount a fuel pump, internal or external. You got to figure out where you got to mount a regulator. Then you got to run some new lines, a feed from the front to the back, and then a return headed back toward the tank. Now we've done this in the past, but this isn't your only option. This Edelbrock kit that we got from Summit Racing is pretty trick. It's a fuel pump, regulator, and reservoir all in one. How it works is your stock carbureted fuel system feeds this thing, and then it supplies your engine with that higher fuel pressure that EFI is looking for. When mounting this, you want to keep it away from anything that gets hot. Mounting ours on the inner fender keeps it safe and tucks it out of the way. From the factory, our AMC had a steel line running from that mechanical pump up to the carburetor. Now we're not going to be reusing that. We've got some rubber hose here. It's going to get the job done. We're also going to be installing a couple of fuel filters. We have one that runs from the mechanical pump up to the sump, and then we've got this one that came in the kit that goes from the sump up to the fuel rail. Now, just because you got a couple of fuel filters doesn't mean that they're created equal. This one has a much greater PSI rating for EFI, so make sure you have the right one for the application. When routing lines, I like to make things look like they belong. Taking time to run them under, behind, or around items can really go a long way on the appearance of the install. Final thing that we need to take care of is the wiring, and since we're running that ProFlow 4, it's basically a snap. Push on the pigtail, then connect the wire from the harness.
The next thing we're going to do is jump into the electrical system, or more particularly, the starter. As you can tell, our old one here has seen better days. It was dragging real bad and had an engaging problem. Now this gear right here is the Bendix, and as you can tell, it's starting to get chipped up pretty bad. Now if you look at our old flex plate here, you'll notice it's in pretty bad shape too. When these two gears get worn over time and don't mesh well together anymore, they end up failing. And if you look right here at the ring gear, you'll see these two weren't getting along. And that's the result of the screeching sound you heard when you turned the key. This is why we had to replace it when we put in our new transmission. Now we could replace the Bendix in this old starter, but that would require digging into it. And considering the age of this old thing, that might be opening up a can of worms. Plus, I don't think this ugly thing's gonna look right on our freshly rebuilt 304. Our new one here is a Duralast remanufactured unit from AutoZone. It has all the latest updates that meet or exceed the OEM unit, and the install is really easy. A couple of factory bolts to line everything up. Plus, this Duralast starter has a lifetime warranty.
Coming up, how to cure your shaking and shimmying with a little break 101. Next on Detroit Muscle. Oftentimes on late 60s and early 70s muscle cars, you'll have two different brake systems on the same ride. You'll have disc on the front, drums out back. Now, drum brakes were the standard up until this point, and yeah, they did get the job done. So manufacturers came up with a much better design, disc brakes, and they've got a lot going for them. One is they handle the heat a whole lot better, which equals greater stopping power. Plus, they're easier to service. When we drove this, Jill, the brakes would stop the car, but when you laid your foot on the brake pedal, well, it had what some would call a small hop to it. The pedal would pulsate just a little bit, and the car had a small shake. These round things on both sides, the rotors, is what's causing our issue. They must be warped. This can be fixed, and you pretty much have two options. One, you can replace the rotor, or two, have it turned. We were already planning to swap the pads out with some EBC yellow stuff, so all the brakes was going to have to come apart. Now we can fix our problem and do an upgrade all at the same go. On our ride, with the tire out of the way, the next thing to go is the caliper. I like to collapse the piston just a bit using a pry bar to make removal easier. Then, with this spindle design of this old AMC, the grease cap, cotter pin, and nut has to come off to remove the rotor. On later model stuff, the rotor normally slides right off and you don't get nearly as greasy. Shoo, that stuff stinks. Turning a set of rotors can be a cheaper way to go instead of replacing the part. However, you can only do this a few times. Each time it gets resurfaced, the rotor gets thinner. A rotor also has to dissipate heat as the brakes are being used. If it's too thin, the contact surface becomes too hot too fast, which can lead to brake fade and even cracking. This process is to smooth out the brake pad contact surface. If your rotors aren't warped but do have the grooves from the pads, this is still a wise decision. As a rule of thumb, the rotor should be remachined every other time the pads are replaced. This will maximize brake pad life and optimize the smoothness of the brake system. Man, that looks nice. With everything all shaped up, we're just about ready to reinstall our rotor. Whenever they were cutting this thing, there was metal shavings going every which way, and one thing that you don't want those is to get into here. I cleaned all the old grease out before we sent it out to the shop. Now with a quick blast of some air, well, we should be pretty much ready to move on. We're going to clean up our bearings to see what kind of condition they're in. You don't have to have a parts washer to do this. A rag and some cleaner will get the job done as well. Everything on our bearings checked out, we just had to repack them. And remember, if you're working on a disc brake application, you need to use some high temp grease. On a spindle nut, you only need to snug it up. Don't get all He-Man on it. And don't forget your cotter pin. These yellow stuffed brake pads from EBC are a great way to upgrade your braking system with a simple component swap. They go in the factory locations and use factory hardware. Easy as pie. Well, that repair and upgrade wasn't too difficult at all. We're pretty much done here. We'll still have to bed in the brakes, but we'll do that once we're out driving. I'm wondering where old Daniel's at. You guys know how he is. He's like a blister. Shows up after all the work's done. Today on Detroit Muscle, we hit the road in our 73 Javelin and spin the rollers on the dyno. But before we can get to all of that, ooh, shiny. The great red, white, and blue is known for many wonderful things. American Muscle, for example. And And then there's this, a product of the American Motors Company. For better or worse, well, that will have to be your decision. Whenever we kicked off this project, we were looking to build something unique and fun. Whenever it comes to working on anything AMC, well, to be different isn't hard at all.
Boy, you got that right, buddy. As for the good time part of this project, we are finishing it. All we have left to do is wrap up the exhaust, shine up that paint, practice rotating the earth on the dyno, and then cruising it back out on the street.
Now, you want to do exhaust, or do you want to do some sanding and polishing on?
You don't want me sanding and polishing, so I guess I'll do exhaust.
All righty. Our goal for today is to take our paint job from pretty good to perfection. And what that's going to involve is some cutting and buffing. That's where you wet sand your surface and then polish it back out. Now, whenever we started down the path of painting this car, well, we knew that we were going to end up with a subject just like this. We began with a couple of coats of sealer, followed by some base, followed by some graphics, followed by some candy, and then several coats of clear. None of this is unusual in this situation. With a normal paint job, you have about 1/3 of those coats. With every layer that you apply, potentially that's more opportunity to get debris into your paint job. Also, you can accumulate more and more texture. So before we even pulled the trigger on the paint gun the first time, we knew that we were going to have to buff it to take our paint job to the next level. To do something like this, you need to plan on spending a lot of time. It doesn't take a lot of tools, just some sanding blocks, paper, and a bucket of water. Whenever I'm wet sanding, I like to use a sponge or a squeegee to clean the surface. What that does is remove the material that's in the water, and it makes sanding a whole lot more efficient because all that debris, well, keeps the paper from touching the surface. When color sanding, you want to be consistent with every stroke. Working in smaller sections helps to ensure your accuracy. And a tip for you, the more water, the faster the cut when sanding. And a couple of people even say a few drops of dish soap in your bucket helps as well. We've completely sanded our hood with 1000 grit, and I've stepped up to 1500, and then I'll follow that with 2000. Then we'll finally be ready to apply some polish and get the luster back to this hood. Now, I'm really excited what this hood's gonna look like when we're done, but I'm even more excited how that AMC is gonna sound with that exhaust Daniel's got.
Now, what we have here is a side pipe kit that we got from Summit Racing. It's going to help give our old AMC Javelin that mean street machine look we've been going for. This is a 60-inch chrome side exhaust kit made by Patriot. It's got large inlet and outlet pipes that make it a low back pressure system, and 6-sided louvered core mufflers, giving us that tough muscle car sound. It comes with these chrome heat shields that just scream 70s, and that's perfect because it's exactly what we're going for. Also in the kit are all the clamps, brackets, and hardware that you'll need to perform the installation. And once we get these things sitting pretty under the car, it will complete our retro styling package on our Javelin.
This kit is pretty much straightforward. It only takes a few minutes to assemble, a couple of U-bolts, and a nut or two, and we're off to the races. Now, placement is in the eye of the pipe holder. For ours, we wanted to make sure we could still see those shiny slapper bars. After marking center, we used a step drill for our pilot hole and finalized the diameter with the proper size drill bit that matches our threaded insert.
All right, guys, what we've done is we've drilled our thread insert holes into the rocker panel. Now, by doing this, we've exposed some bare metal. So what I like to do is I like to put a little strip caulking or some sealant on these thread inserts so we don't cause any rust or any problems in the future.
Using inserts like this makes it convenient to mount numerous things. And trust me, with a handy tool like this, will make you question how you did things without it. To feed the exhaust, Daniel fashioned up a quick 90 to mount to the header, and then simply clamped it to our rocker panel tubas.
Man, them some fancy looking twice pipes right there, if I do say so myself. Now, I've got one more to finish up on the other side, but in the meantime, Tommy's gonna show you guys what a man running a buffer looks like.
Well, we got our hood all finished sanded at 2000 grit, and we're pretty much ready to start adding back on all that shine. And to do that, we're gonna be using a product from Sonax. It's their perfect finish. What's really nice about this setup is it's only one step. It isn't 2 or 3 different pads, 2 or 3 different products. We're gonna be using a green medium density foam pad with our buffer here, and it's gonna look like $1 million when we're done. We're gonna have kind of a buffing 101 here. You guys just saw me slap this thing on there. Well, there's actually a procedure you wanna do. You don't want it all crooked like, because you know it's gonna spin around all crazy. Also, another question that people oftentimes ask is how much compound do you apply? Well, it kind of all depends on the pad. This one is brand new and doesn't have any material on it. So we're gonna have to up the amount to load it properly. And then we'll dial it back to the rule of thumb, 3 or 4 daubs, about a dime size. With perfect finish, you want to start out slow at about 800 RPM. That prevents the compound from slinging off the pad and helps keep you much cleaner. Then we'll crank it up to 1200 RPM. And you always want to keep the buffer moving. I'll polish this in small sections like I did when sanding. Cutting and buffing is a tedious process, but seeing a transition like this, going from a cloudy, sanded surface to a shiny, lustrous reflection with just a couple of passes makes it all worthwhile. As a conclusion, well, that sanding was a little bit labor intensive. Polishing, not so much. Our results, they're tremendous. We started with dirt nibs and an orange peel texture and finished it off with a reflection that looked so deep you could reach your arm into it. Coming up, our serenading sound through side pipes and our power number.
Hey guys, welcome back. We're down here in engine power with Pat and Frankie, and we've got our AMC on the dyno. Now, this is the first time you guys have seen this car completely assembled. We've got the hood on, the paint's all shined up, and our exhausts are correctly installed, thanks to yours truly. Now, what do you guys think's fixing to happen?
Well, to start off, this thing is gorgeous, right? The paint's beautiful. Obviously, we like the engine because, you know, we had a little bit to do with that
Absolutely.
one. But and it rolled in. It was very rumbly, sounded great. So I'm excited to see this thing turn the rollers.
Man, that's good.
I love the side pipes. I mean, the chrome, just the way they go down the side, the whole length. I think it really goes with the paint job, which I also love, but the side pipes, very nice.
Good deal.
I have a serious 70s flashback. When I was a kid growing up, there was a lot of these running around, you know, these type of cars. And if you had a car with Kragers on it with big tires sitting in the yard, you were cool. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this car looks like it's running 200 miles an hour while it's sitting still.
Well, it just may run 200 mile an hour on the roller. What rear gear is in this thing?
I believe it's 308.
That's super steep. So I think we're going to have to dyno in second gear. Otherwise, we'll have a wheel speed of like literally in excess of 170.
Right.
We're not going to do that with those balloons on the back. So.
Yeah, well, that was Tommy's choice, so we'll just blame him for that.
Just throw him right under the bus on the tire. Now, as far as how much power it's going to make, this thing made 337 on the engine dyno. What transmission's in this?
It's got a 904 3-speed in it.
904 3-speed. Okay, well, I think, what did this thing make before?
It made about 130 the last time we had it on the chassis dyno, and I guarantee you we're going to break that.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think it's definitely going to be above 200.
Awesome.
The number's
Awesome.
going to start with a 2.
Yeah, for sure.
This isn't a race car. This is a street car.
Okay.
This is something that's supposed to be reliable with the injection. This is something that cold starts well, drives around well, doesn't give you any problems. And if you want to take it to this drag strip, you can, and it will it'll do everything you want. You can drive there, have some fun, drive it back.
Awesome. So if we have 100 more than we started with, basically, then we've had a pretty good successful day.
I think you're right. So
I think we can get there.
all right.
I think we do it.
Well, let's get some heat in it and see what happens.
All right.
All right. Go for it.
All right. That's
Yeah.
223.
And 233 for torque.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
That's nice. I like that.
Nice and smooth too.
Sounded good. Maybe get a little bit more heat in the transmission. Maybe
Yeah.
make a couple
Yeah.
more bangs on her. But how the air fuels and everything look okay?
Fuels look fine. Everything's good. We're good on temperature and speed and everything
right.
else.
Nice.
Yeah. We already made over 200.
That's right. That's
We're
what we
good.
want.
Good thing we picked second because you're going about 110 at the top.
That's 110
That'll work.
second
That's
gear.
faster than those tires need to go.
Yeah.
How many cars you know can do 110 in second gear with this age? That's pretty
That's
cool.
right.
Whoa, go ahead. All right, she's got a little heat in her right there.
Yeah.
242.
Yeah, buddy, it's over 100 what we went.
Yeah, 242 and 236.
Man, that's over 100 from where we
That's
started.
officially.
You're finally burning the smoke out of the side pipes
Good.
too.
Those pipes are
Yeah.
gonna smoke forever.
Hey, man, that's part of the effect.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, man, so we've already eclipsed the 100
Yeah.
over on the tire.
Man, I can't wait to tell Tommy. He'll never believe this.
I'm
Yeah, I
officially
know.
impressed. That's
This thing is sweet.
man, that is nice. Modern fuel injection. You know, everything runs nice. Nice part about
Yeah.
this car, it's the original engine. This is
That's
311 inches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
No leaks, not hot. Nice, good
110
power.
more than where we started. I think we can't do any better than that.
Boy, that's very, very good. I like that. This is a well put together. Someone's going to have a lot of fun in this.
yeah.
Hopefully, you know, if whoever ends up with this, maybe I'll buy it.
Hey, hopefully.
This will look good in the old
It's
yard
awesome.
right here. So
Yeah.
It's awesome, man. You can go cruising on Friday night and
yeah,
try not to
yeah.
get yourself in a street race.
This was. Well, I'll tell you, this one will attract some attention because someone sees those big old fat tires, they're going to want
right.
to run you. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and them side pipes. Don't ever forget about them.
Oh yeah.
that's right.
Very
Man,
cool.
congratulations. This thing's nice.
Good deal.
Looks
good
good.
deal, man. I appreciate you guys' help.
Yeah, man.
Well, we'll get her off so you can start driving her and enjoying
Sounds
it.
like a plan. Let's get it unstrapped.
Up next, we take our retro piece of muscle out for a spin. Next on Detroit Muscle. The time is finally here. The Javelin's ready to get back out on the highway after its retro makeover.
So we're going to go grab a bite to eat and enjoy the fruits of our labor.
Toss me that rag. You know, it didn't take a whole lot to get this AMC from stagnant to stunning.
That's right. When we picked this old Javelin, we knew that we had a jewel. We didn't want to start with a pile. Well, a pile of rust, that is. So after doing some digging, we finally found us a candidate. It rode nice, it drove well, and if a person just wanted a cruiser, it would do that too. And with that being said, it made a perfect choice for what we had up our sleeve.
The stock 304 didn't run all that bad. As for power, well, really didn't have all that much. And the dyno told the story.
We stopped by and hung out with the fellas down at Engine Power and strapped this thing down to the rollers just to see what it would do. After a few pulls, we ended up with a whopping 133 horsepower, which isn't too far from the power numbers it had rolling out of the factory.
We wanted more performance and really wanted to turn our small cubic power plant into a powerhouse. So we dove right in, stripped it down, and sent it down to Pat and Frankie.
After a bit of machining, a good bit of go-fast parts, and some tuning, they had this thing singing one heck of a sweet song. With a grand total of 329 horsepower was a vast improvement. And out of an engine that is just over 300 cubic inches isn't too bad.
While those boys were doing their thing, it was time for us to do our thing, starting with the paint. We wanted this Javelin to look aggressive and tasteful at the same time. With AMCs of this era, it's easy to say that they are a bit voluptuous. So, if we complemented the lines and the curvature of this body, in the end, we would have us something special. With a couple of stripes, a splash of a few killer colors from Summit Racing, followed by some sweet candy, that did the trick.
I'm starving. With our snazzy new paint, we just needed a few groovy accessories to complete this street machine makeover.
Yeah, that paint and several throwback components are what transformed our AMC into this altered, muscled up creation. Air shocks and slapper bars were a must. Any dignified muscle car from back in the day was hiked up on the backside and showing off that glistening chrome on the bottom. Our ride had to be the same. The best part about both of these upgrades is that you get a lot of bang for your buck.
While we're on the subject of shiny stuff, I've got one word for you: Krager's. Young or old, if you call yourself a car guy, you know what these are. I'd wager that this wheel would have to be the most recognized custom wheel, hands down. And with our combo of big and littles, you see why.
Brother, I'm feeling me some onion rings.
Yeah, sounds good. Now this piece of Detroit just needed one more thing to finish it off. It looked nice, but it just needed something.
You think you're gonna get the jumbo one here?
Yeah.
What he's talking about, well, some vehicles come from the factory with these. You know, the cool stuff, like Corvettes, long-nosed Peterbilts. Oh yeah, those are real nice. It hitting the spot?
Oh yeah.
Now, I'm definitely proud of the way this thing turned out.
Yeah, it's got trick paint, a lot of chrome, plenty of performance, and all the attitude.
After finishing up our grub, we were headed back to the shop. You know, there's something that just feels right whenever you're grabbing some fresh air and sitting behind the wheel of some vintage muscle. If you're looking to store your ride, one thing's for sure is you don't want to put it in harm's way. A custom form-fit car cover from Covercraft can help protect your ride.
The fabric is engineered to protect against minor garage dents and dings that oftentimes seem to mysteriously happen when no one is around.
The material is also highly breathable to prevent vapors and heat from building up under the cover. It's also super soft and won't harm glass, chrome, or your paint.
So if you want to preserve, protect, and shelter your baby, you might want to check out Covercraft.